It's been a long time, but I remember it well, just like the photo we keep on the shelf. Oh, we were young, oh, we were young. Now 10 years have passed and we're still locked in time. I don't take for granted the years that go by. Started with a gaze, here we remain.
I want to share with you a circumstance that I had when Sharon and I got back together again after the 6th time we split. She left me. I was in Canada. She was in Nicaragua. And by God's divine intervention, somehow we ended up getting back together again. And she had no intention of getting back with me. She had nothing but contempt for me, and I'm not complaining. I'm not putting her down. This isn't about slandering my wife. This is about, these are the facts. And, justifiably so, she wanted to divorce me, in my opinion. And, I'm not going to hold anything against my wife, and we both had issues with each other. So, but the point is we got back together again. We went to Nicaragua, and I flew down there. I took the dog and the cat, and I flew down there to meet her. And I want to explain this for those of you who are suffering really tough times in your marriage. And I don't think I'm qualified to teach on marriage just because Sharon and I got back together again and we seem to be doing good now. That's not what qualifies us. I think the Lord wants us to share a testimony, what He did for us, to show His faithfulness, no matter what the circumstances look like. No matter how they feel, no matter what emotions or troubles or trauma or abuse or anything. And I've seen God come through for me in unbelievably impossible, absolutely impossible situations. And I know this is very hard for some people to believe because we live in a society, we don't have problems in our society. Our life in North America is fairly cushy compared to a lot of different parts of the world where they suffer persecution, where they go through war, where they go through no food, no water, and there is a lot of suffering. But in North America, we don't get to experience God the way they do. And, the Bible is full of examples. I mean, which person in the Bible did not go through horrific things in their life, didn't suffer some kind of injustice, unfairness, persecution, loss of family, loss of loved ones, from Job to Moses to Joseph, in Egypt, to the Apostle Paul and all the apostles, to Jesus. Everyone, the Bible says, that desires to live a holy life for God and Him alone will suffer in this life. And there are lots of different reasons for it, and I'm not going to get into it all here, but I want to share with you what we went through, what I went through in Nicaragua. And this isn't to blame, this isn't so I want pity, it's not for I want attention. I'm telling you the truth that, God will put you through really bad stuff according to your ability to endure it. And that's what the scripture says. In my case, when I went to Nicaragua, I end up, after 2 years, almost 2 years being in Nicaragua with my wife, going down there specifically to save my marriage, for my wife, to save my marriage. That's it. That's all I went down there for. And that's what God wanted me to go down there for. And I come back to Canada with nothing. I lost the dog and the cat that I went down there with. I had to leave them there. I lost, between my wife and I, we lost over 100,000 Canadian dollars. We were, I'm not going to get into it, but basically, I'm not going to get into it. Let's just put it that way. And I lost my wife again for the 7th time. Now, we almost starved to death. We ended up being on a piece of property out in just outside San Juan del Sur, and we ended up living there. I was sleeping on the concrete floor. My wife was sleeping in a hammock, And we went through all kinds of sicknesses, disease, and injuries. I wouldn't say disease, but I had a urinary infection. I was stung by a scorpion because my immunity was so low because of malnutrition that I had a bad response to the scorpions, and I'd been stung 2 or 3 times in the last few weeks. So I ended up losing the ability to use my legs one night for 1 night. I couldn't, all of a sudden my legs would just give out on me. My lips went numb, and I actually thought I was going to die. And it was at night, and Sharon believed I was going to die, and she was trying to think, what's she going to tell people? How's she going to explain my death with her presence there? And that's how bad it was. And I remember confessing my sins and thinking I'm going to die, and having the Lord's Supper, having communion, and hoping that would heal me and strengthen me, and asking for God to save me. And in case I did die, I didn't want to die in sin. So I confessing my sins, because it really wasn't going well between Sharon and I. She got to the point where she wouldn't hug me anymore. She was just, at the whole situation, it wasn't just me, it was everybody we were involved with. She was disappointed and let down by different people. And she couldn't believe how people turned their back on her and turned their back on us. And we had no food. We had to boil rainwater for drinking, making coffee and tea. Sharon was getting from the government 60 Canadian dollars a month put in her bank account, in her TD bank account, that we had to access, get the bank to send it via Western Union to Western Union in San Juan del Sur, and she had to take the bus in, walk down a gravel road in the country to the bus stop and grab a bus and take the bus in to the Western Union and take out the $40 American that was left over, about $40 American or less, to buy groceries. And it was so bad. I mean, she was skin and bone by then. And I saw her go from, a healthy weight, literally skin and bone. There was nothing. She was straight down flat board, basically. And she had to put pillows on a chair to sit on, because she had no padding to sit on her body. So she had to use pillows to sit on a chair. And I was underweight, but I'm more muscular, right? I'm more dense that way. Men are built that way. So, and people, when they saw her in town shopping, they approached her and said, "What's wrong with you? Are you sick? What's wrong with you?" And they just noticed that she just looked like she was dying, and she was. We were literally starving to death. We were dying, and we had no help. We had a couple people that helped us out, a couple Christian people who sent over food and stuff, but for the most part, they really didn't want to get involved. And the only reason they helped, because I almost begged them. And but most people just kind of like just look at you and go, "Well, you guys screwed up." Rumors spread, gossip spread, and people get the wrong idea about you, and they just kind of look at you and just think, "Well, that's your fault," and just kind of walk away from you. But we did have some miracles. God came through with some people who did miraculously showed up and did some wonderful things for us and helped us out a lot. And that was God. And then, he had some people send me money just out of the blue we were $800 US behind on border fees, paying for our border. So we couldn't make it because we didn't have a car, we didn't have gas. And when we did have a car and we did have gas, we didn't have money to keep putting gas in. So every hill that we came to in the car, I would literally shut the car off and coast down the hill so I could conserve gas. That's how tight it was. And we were living, we were living off grid. We were living with no comforts, no hydro, no electricity, no running water. But then it got so bad, our emotions started to take its toll. We became very mentally deficient, and it was just so bad. Bitterness set in, And Sharon, she just lost hope, lost care and everything. And she just, I mean, she didn't even care about me anymore. And she literally refused to show me any compassion, literally. And I mean literally. You can ask her today. You know, we just talked about this morning, actually, and that's why I'm doing this message now, because I thought this would be a good message, a good testimony, maybe to show the faithfulness of God, that He can come through for you, and He will come through for you if you rely on Him. But anyways, I'm not blaming her, putting her down. I did things wrong too, to push her away. You know, I got angry with her. I yelled at her. I was frustrated because of the situation. I blamed her for what was happening because she wouldn't listen to me. I warned her what was going to happen. She didn't listen. She trusted somebody else instead, and we ended up losing all our money. So I was bitter about that, and that didn't help our relationship. So that's the wrong thing to do, but that's what I did. And it was an impossible situation. It was way over my head. And I know for a fact we had the spirit of Jezebel involved in that. Not from my wife, but it affected my wife through somebody else. I was just in the point where there's nothing I could do. There was just absolutely nothing I could do. Anyways, it got to the point where somebody called the police, and the police came, and the police came and talked to me and asked me about my relationship with my wife. Somebody else called the police, not my wife, not me. Somebody else did, who was involved, who wanted me out. They wanted me out of away from my wife. They wanted me. They wanted my wife to be with them down there, and they didn't care about my marriage. And I went there for my marriage, and they didn't like me, didn't agree with me, don't agree with my beliefs. They didn't want me. They just didn't want me there. And anyways, now I'm on the property that they have, and they don't want me on the property. So they call the police. The police came in. So two military police women. I wouldn't say military, police women with assault rifles. And they came with an interpreter, and a white guy, man interpreter, and he interpreted for them and back from me and so forth. You get the picture. And when it was done, they left, and I went back out to work doing what I was doing, and they said, okay, we're just going to talk to your wife. And so last thing I saw was my wife saying, honey, they just want to talk to me. And I said, okay. So they were talking to her. I went back to work, and I wasn't really paying attention. About a half an hour, 3/4 of an hour later, I stop and I look around, and it's dead quiet. The police truck is gone. Everybody's gone. There's not a sound. I mean, it's dead quiet. I'm the only one there. And my heart just sank again. I figured, I thought, man, is she gone again? She wouldn't leave me again. Was she like this? And I went looking for her. I walked down our road on the property down to the main road, and there's nothing, nobody. Everybody was gone. And I thought, okay, here we go again. I'm alone again. And I knew, I just hit my knees and started covering my wife with prayer, because I knew her life would be in danger spiritually. And there's a reason for that, but I'm not going to get into this in this message. I'm testifying this is exactly what happened. And I'm left there alone now with the dog and the cat. And I got no money. I go into the building where we're sleeping, and I find $80 American in the one of the it's not a Bible, but a Rhema book that we have, and it's a spiritual book, but she left and abandoned me, and I never heard from her again. She ended up, from what I understand, going in the hospital. She almost died. She flatlined in the hospital, had a stroke, and booked a flight back to Canada and was leaving me, and didn't call me, didn't tell me, nothing. And I'm not saying this to make her look bad. This is the state of her mentality at the time, that she just weeps over. Even this morning when we were talking, she started crying, and she feels so bad for doing it. And you said, well, why do you keep talking about it? Why do you keep bringing it up and feeling bad? Because I'm going to tell you why. It's not so we can feel bad and blame each other or anything like that. It's just that those are moments that you can look back and say, wow, look what God has done. where we were and what he did. These are what we call altars. It's no different than what Joshua setting up stones as an altar to remember, or Jacob setting a stone where this is where God was. These are the things that we remember to help us remember the faithfulness of God. So when you come into a situation again, you remember, hey man, he was there for me last time, he'll be there for me again. You know, it's the same God. So what happened was I called my uncle and you know, they're willing to help me leave the country because I had no money, and they're willing to pay for me to leave the country, but they want to send me back to Canada. Well, I know the Lord wanted me to go to New Mexico, and I confirmed it with people in New Mexico that the Lord told them, yeah, he's supposed to come there. So that's what God arranged with them. That's what God arranged with me. It was confirmed, and I was supposed to fly to New Mexico, but I didn't have the money. And the car was not even in my name. The car was in the company name. I paid for it, but it was in the company name that my wife was president of, that bought the property. And so I have no legal right there at all to anything. Number one, the property I stayed on, I didn't have a legal right to really be there. I didn't have a legal right to the car. I couldn't sell it because it wasn't in my name. I had no authority over that. And so I had no money. I was stuck in Nicaragua with no way out, and my aunt and uncle are willing to pay, but to go to Canada, and I knew I wasn't supposed to go to Canada. So if I was going to go to New Mexico like the Lord wanted, he had to come through for me. So I end up getting a message from the Lord, and he said, I will provide for your trip. So I thought, well, how in the heck is he going to do that? Anyways, well, the thought occurred to me to sell the car. So I end up calling somebody who was involved with the company who owned the car, and they said, it's okay, I have power of attorney, I can sign off and you can have the money for the car. So thank God for that. But the car had a flat tire, had no gas, I had no money, the battery's dead because we were using the battery to keep charging the phone so we could keep using our phones. So, and I had a generator, but I only had a little bit of gas for the generator, and I had to hook up the generator to charge the battery, but I didn't have much gas. So it was a desperate situation. And, you know, anyways, I went in town and talked to somebody who owned a car lot, who actually sold us the car, who owned mechanics in San Juan del Sur, a really nice guy, and him and his wife, and they helped me out a lot. And he said, well, the cars aren't selling. They're not going to sell, so I don't see how you're gonna be able to sell this car. I said, look, I just want enough money for a ticket to get out of here. I don't care how much you get for it. Take your cut, whatever. I just need enough money for a ticket. And he said, well, I'll see what I can do. No guarantees. Anyways, I get back to the property again, and a few hours later, I get a call. He says, I have a buyer for the car. And he said, he's going to be here at 5 o'clock in the afternoon if you can be here with the car. So I thought, oh man, it was panic. It was like already 3:30. And I'm thinking, how much? Okay, I have a compressor for the tire, the back tire, to pump it up, but I need to use the battery power for the compressor, and I don't have battery power. So I wheeled up the generator, the big generator, in a wheelbarrow, hooked it up to the car, and yeah, I hooked it up to the car, let the generator continue to charge the car battery. And then I ran the compressor to blow up the tire, but the hose on the compressor was so deteriorated it kept blowing holes in the hose on the compressor, a little 12-volt compressor. So I kept taping it, and every time I taped a hole, another hole would blow. So I only got the tire blown up maybe 26, 28 pounds or something like that. It wasn't much, but enough I could drive it. And at that point, I had to wait then for the battery to charge enough so I could turn the car over and start it. Now I realize if I turn the car over and it doesn't go, I've used up all that power to try and turn the car over to start it, and then I have to start all over again, and I'm running out of gas in the generator, and I'm running out of time because I got to get the car there for 5 o'clock. So what happened was, and everything just happened to work out. I jumped in the car and I went to turn just praying, so Lord, please let it start, and boom, away it went. thank God. Now I got to pray there's enough gas, because the gas in the tank of the car, because we had no money. We ran the, we had nothing, and I had to drive to San Juan del Sur. So the gas gauge in the car didn't work. So there's no way to tell how much gas was in the tank. So it was just a guessing game. I end up jumping in the car, leaving everything there, locking up the building, grabbing the keys, taking off down the graveled road, trying to, same thing, shutting off the car, going down the hill to conserve gas to make sure I get there. Anyways, I finally get there, and by the end of the night, I had I think it was 1,500 US cash in my pocket. Sold the car and got back to the property, and what a relief. But I'm telling you, when you're stuck in a life and death situation, and I mean, I was already malnutrition, and I was literally, I was climbing trees to find palm nuts to eat, because we didn't have money for food. At some point, we didn't have anything, and we're feeding the dog and the cat spaghetti, and spaghetti is one of the cheapest things to buy down at the corner store there. And we used a lot of flour, just cheap stuff, some oatmeal, and we bought eggs. You could buy eggs there right from the local people who had, just eggs, not supermarket eggs, but real homegrown eggs, and bread. But the money didn't go far, so it was a life and death situation. But it turns out I end up getting to New Mexico, and now I'm back to Canada. And then somehow, I mean, in the meantime, Sharon is wanting a divorce. I'm even back in Canada now. I'm just kind of at the point where, you know what, just give her the divorce. And if that's what she wants, I'm tired of fighting for this marriage. And I just wanted to give her the divorce. But somehow it just never worked out like that, and we end up getting back together, and we have the most amazing marriage that we've ever had. This is the best part of our marriage we've ever had. The whole 15 years we've been together. And the last 10 years, she's left me 7 times in 10 years. Sometimes, it's no minimum of 5 months, 6 months, 9 months, up to over a year at a time. So we've been apart for at least for 50% of our marriage. We haven't even been together. And the thing is I totally, I'll can tell you, if you take anything from this message, is you really know the faithfulness of Jesus when he's all you have left. A woman said that to me on one of the, she texted actually in one of her testimonies that she told me online through a Facebook group, a marriage Facebook group that I like to post messages on. And that's what she said, and I thought, man, that's powerful. You don't know the faithfulness of God, how important he is, until he's all you have left. And that's all I had left. And you can imagine being left in a foreign country with no money, no help, no way out. No one's helping you. There's nothing. And I have no income. My bank card doesn't work. I have no money in the bank in Canada. I have nothing. Even the dog and cat now, I lost that. Lost my dog and my cat. Nothing. So you can imagine how terrifying that is, to be left someplace you could starve to death and nobody cares. Nobody cares. Not even your wife who you love. She's gone back to Canada. Your history, man. She's just gone back to Canada, and she's living with her daughter and her daughter and her husband. And I'm history. I'm not her concern anymore, because she was struggling with her stuff, and I'm in the past. But that's saying all that is not to blame or to anything like that, because that's not the whole story. That's only my version of what I'm telling you for the point of showing how faithful God is. We wrote a book about it called 2 Broken Pencils, and it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that book, we tell the whole story unbelievable events, even where God showed up supernaturally, things he showed us, signs and wonders and amazing things we learned and taught about marriage from God's perspective that we never knew before. And I knew the scriptures, but I never knew this until you go through it. Then that's when you learn. You know, King David, he learned about the love of God and the faithfulness of God in the heat of the battle. He didn't learn in the classroom in Bible studies, you know, and church settings, you know, where you're safe and all that stuff. But those things have their place and they're good. But where you really learn about God's faithfulness is in life. The situations he allows you to go through so you can learn to increase your faith and your trust in him by the circumstances he allows you to go through. And that's the truth. Now, everyone in the Bible had to be tested in their faith. And so will you, and so have I. So I hope this helps someone. God bless you.